I don't need to work for this or work for that to fulfill some type of higher calling in life. What I do has not tied to my calling in life. And I think that's the thing that I polluted for so long, was that I tied what I was doing to, oh, I'm called to do this, or I'm gifted to do this. And it's like, no, like that's not even correct at all. You know, I can be called to do whatever I want to do. I don't need to do this specific thing because I feel called to it, and now I'm shackled to it. I hate it. It's tearing me apart. You know, that's not it. Hey there, welcome back to the Back Pocket Creative. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever you do to support me. I appreciate it. So this week, you know, we talked about a bunch of different topics past couple weeks that have kind of intertwined, and this is kind of another one that intertwines as well. It kind of goes in theme of kind of where my mindset's been here lately as a creative, as someone that's doing a lot of different things, that has my hand in a lot of different buckets. And, you know, one thing I've talked about too recently is how, you know, my workload is very high right now. And I wouldn't say it's the highest it's been, although I guess on paper it probably is. But it's one of those things where, and I talked about it a little bit last week, but like, you know, I know in the week before, but basically knowing like, I know I'll eventually hit a limit, but at the same time, I'm kind of embracing the fact that I can really be at a high level of working, of producing, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I think one thing that I realized is when I started early in being, you know, creative, I guess, say, or in video, and had a position and stuff like that, even when I was not at a position, was just around helping. I think one thing that I really kind of saw with myself is I loved it. It was pretty much like if I was working, I didn't feel like I was working because, hey, I loved it, right? And I had that mentality for a while. And then, you know, the politics of things started sweeping in, and, you know, a lot of just bad apples kind of corrupted the way that I saw what I was doing. And then I became, you know, I guess you could say bitter, and I guess I became very like kind of off-put by the creative process, because so many people had their hands in it that never should have had their hands in it, that thought they were good at what they did, and they weren't. They were just disruptors, and they were never really good at managing creatives or managing even managing situations. They just weren't good at it, and they were in charge. And so I think I became very kind of just rigid and just very much like, okay, it's a job now. And I lost my love for it. And then I went to another position, and, you know, I think I started to kind of enjoy things again, but, you know, was banging my head up against the wall, and then COVID happened, and, you know, then I felt like, okay, hey, I enjoyed again, but then banging my head up against the wall again, and it just never really would break. And I realized, you know, where I was limiting who I could be, you know. And I think, and I've talked about this over and over again in the last couple episodes, but I want to kind of take a different angle on it. And that is what I realize now is I need to maintain my happiness level. And I know that's like kind of like some people are like, oh, whatever, you know, especially when I was in the positions I was in, you know, happiness wasn't even a thought. It didn't really even matter to me because, you know, happiness as a creative is subjective, right? Because happiness for some people as creative is getting paid a lot of money, right? Being able to live lavishly, being able to live beyond your means, like being able to intake a lot of money. And I think that's happiness for a lot of creatives, and that's fine. If that's where you measure your happiness, then that's where you're at, right? But I think I measure my happiness of, you know, am I being able to be home with my family? Am I able to be home with my kids? Am I able to do projects I enjoy? Am I able to work with people that I want to work with? And I think what I started to do is I started to shift my mindset, where I started removing the things and the people in my life that didn't make me happy. And I started to say no to things that didn't make me happy. And if it compromised my happiness, if working with someone compromised my happiness, I rejected it and I turned it down, and I didn't work with those people. And I've now put myself in a position where I can say who I work with. I can say what projects I take part in. I can say what I do. And I think for so long I was at a position where I didn't have a say in who I worked with or what I did. And I think now, looking back on it, I'm glad I took this leap of faith to basically leave, you could say, standard work or standard living and the kind of machine of work, decided to kind of leave that behind and take on a new mindset, is that, hey, you know what? I don't need to work for this or work for that to fulfill some type of higher calling in life. That what I do has not tied to my calling in life. And I think that's the thing that I polluted for so long, was that I tied what I was doing to, oh, I'm called to do this or I'm gifted to do this. And it's like, no, like that's not even correct at all. You know, I can be called to do whatever I want to do. I don't need to do this specific thing because I feel called to it and now I'm shackled to it. I hate it. It's tearing me apart. You know, that's not it. You know, and so I think a lot of times we have to deconstruct what we're called to. And hey, if you're in a position where you're only there because you think it's your calling in life or your thing that you're supposed to do in life, that's going to fall away so quick. That's not why you should be there. Sorry. That's not enough. Especially if you're miserable. And I get it. You know, some people, hey, I'm so happy and I'm just called to do this. Okay, cool. But if you're not, and you're still there, and the only thing you're holding on to is, well, I think I'm supposed to do this, that's not it. It's not enough to stay. It's just not. And I think sometimes we have to step out of where we are, and maybe we don't see what's in front of us, but we got to step out, because eventually we can be validated and we can have our work affirmed. And I think a lot of times with creatives, we kind of get beat up a lot. And so we're used to just getting beat up and used to getting told like, hey, no, this sucks, or like, hey, no, like you're not doing a good enough job. And I think, and then what we do is our self-worth just goes and plummets, and we have to really work on our own self-worth and how we view ourselves. Because a lot of times, you know, you may feel like you're supposed to be at a place, but they just beat you down all the time. Well, I hate to say it, but that's a sign you shouldn't be there. You just, you know, let's go ahead and leave and get out of that situation, because, you know, to be honest, like you're only serving their best interests in their end. No one's helping you. No one's furthering your dreams. And I think that's the thing, is like, you've got to take control of your own life and take control of your own destiny. The thing is, you don't need to be a cog in a machine. If you feel like you're caught up in your cog in the machine, leave where you are. And I know it's hard, but I did it, and I did it with no job lined up, no anything. I felt like I was a cog in the machine, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I left, and to be completely honest, regardless of what people think, I stepped out on a limb with no income, no anything at all. I didn't really even meet what I was making when I quit my job until 6-7 months later. And it was one of those things it was a leap of faith, but I was tired of being the cog in the machine. I was tired of being the grunt. And you know what's crazy is I was always taught that is basically what you should be happy with that. You know, you should be content with being a cog in the machine, content with serving a higher vision or a higher purpose. And, you know, I get that. I do that now, but I think I do it on my own terms now. And I also do it where I am valued. And I also do it where, hey, you know what's crazy is I don't get beat down all the time, and I don't get, you know, reprimanded for dumb things and have to meet some kind of expectation that no one's living up to, but I have to, because that's the demands placed on me. And if you're there, my biggest encouragement, and I've said it past couple episodes, is just get out. I hate to say it, and I know it goes against what we've potentially, at least what I grew up being told, is that, you know what, it's a good thing to leave. I think a lot of times people demonize leaving and demonize leaving places and say, oh, you're just jumping from place to place. And yeah, okay, sure. Well, start treating your people better, start paying your people better, start actually valuing them as humans, and maybe they'll stay around. Because the truth is, if you're treating people horribly and then you're blaming that they're leaving on them, I think you have to look at yourself eventually, especially as a leader or someone that's a manager or whatever. If you have people, especially creatives, underneath you that are just constantly leaving, it's not them, it's you. I'm sorry. Like, that's how it is. Like, you know, you don't know how to manage creatives, so figure it out or get out of your position and let someone that actually knows how to manage creatives. Because I think that's the biggest problem. And this is a soapbox I'll just live on for the rest of my life, but I don't think people know how to actively and correctly lead creatives, here's the truth. You want a creative to be, I guess productive, and you want them to do a lot. Here's a cheat code. Just listen. They don't want your 9 to 5 job. They don't want to sit in your office meetings where nothing's accomplished and people throw daggers all over the staff meeting. No one wants that. That sucks. They shouldn't be in those, to be completely honest with you. I hate staff meetings, and I hate meetings, period, because nothing ever happens in them. So if your meeting isn't important, why are your creatives there? But you make them, hey, you got to be here 9 to 5. You got to attend all these meetings. You got to get pulled in all this crap that you got to do. And then you wonder why they're leaving. You wonder why they're not happy in your system. And you're like, oh, well, it's traditional. All staff's got to be here. No, they don't, actually. They'll probably get more accomplished, because the truth is, if you look in especially creative environments where there's people that are doers and there's people that are outside of the creative realm that are working with creatives, normally the people that are working their tails off are the creatives. Everyone else in the organization is just pencil pushing, just doing whatever, and they only work 1-2 days a week. And I hate to say it, but that's what I've observed, is that a lot of times the people that I'm working side of that aren't creatives, that are in other positions, they're doing nothing throughout the entire week, but they're getting praise, they're getting the raises, and then the creatives, because they don't enjoy the 9 to 5 grudging, just like lifestyle, then they're the demonized. They're said that, hey, you're not productive, you're not a team player, when the whole time you just have to treat them differently. I hate to say it, but like, if you do that, they probably will respond differently. I've been able to accomplish more with a much higher workload, because you know what? I don't attend staff meetings. I don't know the last time I really sat in a real meeting. And I won't. I mean, if I need, but at the end of the day, if I'm as a contractor in a meeting, it's actually because there's something being done in that meeting. I've not been in a lot of meetings where it's just like, hey, we're going to sit here and talk about today 6 different things, and we're not going to make any decisions. And those meetings are far from me. I do not want to be a part of them. They're the worst. I hate meetings that go nowhere, that took a ton of time and sucked my entire day dry. They're the worst. And so, I think that as I'm getting off of that soapbox, if you're creative and you're in that type of environment and you really do enjoy it, have a conversation with your leader, have a conversation with your manager, have a conversation with your boss, and say, hey man, this meeting stuff, like, it's not for me. I'd rather be being productive. I'd rather be creating. And, because here's another problem. A lot of people that lead creatives, they don't understand. We don't work the way that most people work, right? I don't build walls, right? But if you have somebody build a wall and you have somebody create a video, right? That person is going to finish that wall typically before that person finishes that video, especially if they have to dream it up from scratch. Building a wall, and I understand there's different, I've been around it, but building walls, for the most part, pretty easy. You get your studs, you have your plywood, blah, 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 sheetrock, right? Nails. It's standard, right? But hey, I need you to create this promo video, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be this, it's got to have this narrative, and you got to pull from this. So now that person has to go create that. So now what looks like progress to you, because you can see the wall being built, but you can't see the video being built, or you can't see the graphic being built. Now that person is devalued because someone else who's basically already got a blueprint of what they're supposed to do is more productive, or you can see their work, but you can't see their work because, hey, they're creative. They're having to dream it up. They're having to do conversations. They're having to do research that you don't see. So now you're devaluing their work just because you can see someone else's work. And that's just a bad mentality. And to be honest, like, if you're in that type of environment as a creative, just get out. They don't deserve you. You deserve better. And you know what? They deserve to fail, and they deserve to keep going through creatives over and over again until they figure out that they're really bad at leading creatives. And I hate to say it, but that's how I feel. And, at the end of the day, I've been in those environments, and I have friends right now that text me all the time, message me all the time about how terrible of an environment their place is at managing creatives. And you know what? It's because you expect them to be this 9 to 5 worker where, you know what? If they worked 70 hours out of the office, they'd be able to do more than they're doing 35 hours in the office. And it's just the truth. And they would work the 70 out of the office because creatives love to create. And the problem is you're not letting them create because they're having to sit through your boring meetings. So That is done. I'm done with that. I'm going to end that soapbox because that just goes nowhere. But I've been there. And if you're creative and you're frustrated with that, you're not alone. So that's enough for me today. And I will see you next week on the Back Pocket Creative, unless you got offended.
From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize